All right, hello everybody from the back porch. Here with Ken Taylor, founder of Commercial Truck Training, and we are going to review with you some of the uh, gold standard cornerstone teachings from the Ultimate Boot Camp. Because if you're watching this, you're either interested in it and found us maybe on YouTube or on the new One Nexus dealer training site, or are getting ready to register for an Ultimate Boot Camp to begin with, or some form of our other trainings. And you get the best of both worlds today with Ken and I, in that we'll talk a little bit about the origination of any of these given topics and how they fit in commercial and fleet, and how they started in the Ultimate Boot Camps, and then where they are now, which some of them have hardly changed at all, and then others have been tweaked considerably to bring you more action within the event, so that you're really leaving with, I know exactly how to do this moving forward. So we're going to touch on a few of those today to give you a little bit of an example of what it's like to attend one, at least within conversation of us just sitting here on the, hopefully at this point, legendary back porch here in Ponte Vedra. So the first one I want to talk about that was probably the hottest word in the industry in 2024, prospecting. And you and I kind of take a little bit of a different approach to that word itself, in that prospecting has lots of different variations of application.
Yep.
In our case, in the case of the Ultimate Boot Camp, we focus much more on just gathering the opportunities and leads that are out there, categorizing them, finding out what your connection point or referral source is with them, and then executing on the sales call process that comes from that. Talk a little bit about the origination of putting your thoughts into prospecting for commercial and fleet, and adapting it to this training.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of interesting. We use the term low-hanging fruit in a lot of different ways. And I'll go back to one particular dealership locally, Nimnik Chevrolet, one of our first. They were missing opportunities, and part of it was how they were prospecting. They got a new customer, and then they went on to find more new customers. They didn't follow up on that. And one of the things we introduced that was so successful was, after about one or two purchases of vehicles, ask for an appointment and just sit down and ask questions that relate to why they bought again, what they like best, what stood out about what our dealership does versus the ones you've dealt with.
Right.
So we really kind of separate that dealership, or separate ourselves as being part of the dealership. But and then once they've got that information, one of the most powerful questions in the world that people don't ask: could you help me?
Could you help me?
Because they've already said a lot of wonderful things about you.
Right. You've already established quality credibility.
Absolutely.
And now you're simply asking for the next step. Yes.
Yeah. So could you help me? And I learned the hard way, if you ask vaguely for referrals, you'll get a "let me think about it." Yeah, I'll put some thought in that and I'll get back to you. And then nothing ever happens.
Right.
And I distinctly remember the first time I did this. I sat down one night and started thinking, how could we improve the referrals? And we went with, and it hit me, it just boom. They have customers, and they are customers in some situations. And the easiest referrals to get would be happy customers.
Right.
It would be very, very simple to get. But then what question do you ask that they would be comfortable with? And the single word that hit my mind was vendor. And I thought, well, gosh, not only do they have customers, they have vendors where they are the customer.
Right.
And it would be much easier to get appointments from a vendor who you are the customer than any other way.
Right.
And I'll never forget the first time I went out and did that. It was actually with Nimnik Chevrolet, with Mike, who became the commercial manager
Mhm.
eventually. And I asked a question. I said, I'm just curious, how many vendors do you have, people that you are the customer and they provide services to you? How many vendors do you have that service you where you're actually the customer? And that's the exact way I ask it, because when I ask about vendors, a lot of times they didn't understand. But when
Right.
I asked where you are the customer, they went, oh gosh, probably 15, 20 is usually what I got. I mean,
Right.
they have a lot of vendors. And do you and the question that I asked next, after finding out how are we doing, they told us you're doing great, you're doing a great job. So the second question then was already set up. Do you think they would enjoy the same level of service that you just described you've received? And I got yes
Yeah.
every time.
Cashing in on that credibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, great. Well, as we've done with you, we're not pushy. We don't, we're not aggressive. We just build relationships and try to help people that are our customers or that are even our prospects. And they give you the name. And I learned to ask the very question: is there a specific person I should be talking
Right.
with? And then they've given you the name of the decision maker, usually the owner. And in some cases, they've even called ahead of time that, hey, this guy's going to be called and he's really there to help. And that's really where a lot of our word scripts tracks evolved, was from that call.
Yeah.
Where I had to say the right things, because you probably weren't going to get a second chance.
Right.
Hey, we so and so, your customer asked me to give you a call. We've been able to help them grow their business, and they thought that you could benefit from the same things we've been able to bring to them.
Yeah.
And that word track just seemed to work so well. Well, yeah. Occasionally, you had someone ask, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, do you ever prospect? Well, yeah. And what happens? Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I go, well, what if there was a better way to prospect? So we started
Right.
asking more questions that got us into their customers, and then eventually their customers, their of the customer became the next level, and it just
Mhm.
went on and on and on. So it was kind of a very prolific way to grow the business without having to go out and make a ton of cold calls.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will forever promote the number one prospecting list that you should go off after, as far as low-hanging fruit is concerned, is recent and past customers, or current
Right.
customers as well,
Exactly.
because that relationship already exists. Now, if you're brand new, there's a little bit more navigation that comes into play, but not really.
No, I agree.
They're always looking for vehicles as well. You should know absolutely how many they need to have in their fleet, and there's a lot of the fleet side of our business can answer those questions for you and how you go about those. But at the end of the day, the more you keep your customers happy and use that particular list in the right way, the more leverage you have on everybody else that you communicate with, because you've already established a quality book of business.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that is so paramount that nobody does, I swear nobody does it. Once they give you those prospects, and once you actually turn some of those prospects into customers, get back in touch with your referral source and say, hey, I want to
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
I want to thank you because this has now become a customer. And in fact, more than say, I want to thank you, get gift certificates.
Something.
Something where you can say, hey, I just wanted to give this to you. Well, great. What did I do? Well, you gave me those referrals, and 2 of those turned into customers, and I just wanted to say thank you. And what happens next is you start getting more referrals.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's so simple. What's the old saying? There's nothing so uncommon as common sense.
Right. We have that video. In fact, I think we debuted it the last time you were at the Ultimate Boot Camp in New York, with Dr. Ivan Meisner, BNI. And he talked about the top 10 traits of excellent networkers, prolific. I forget what the phrase was. And number 1 was following up on their referrals.
Amen.
Without a doubt. So often people see, oh, hey, there's a lead here and it's a referral, and they almost take it as, oh, that's more work I have to do. That's the whole point. That's exactly what you're aiming for. But in our case, the relationship stays at the forefront, and thanking that person who gave you that referral is just as important on following through on that referral itself and establishing that new customer, or new prospect anyway, as a customer.
Yeah, and rewarding them, thanking them and rewarding them. The two go together.
Yeah.
So suddenly they've got a gift certificate, and they're able to take their wife out to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
or they're able to take someone, you know. But you have, one of the things you do have to know, and I learned this the hard way too, was what is their favorite eating place?
So let's transition the conversation to that of in the chapter of the modern sales call and how you go about this. And I know there are certain big names in sales out there that don't like this approach. The day that somebody in our industry comes to us and says, hey, this commercial and fleet sales is no longer about relationships, then we'll start paying attention to the way others that are bigger names do this. Until then, we'll focus on the relationship. So how do you go about going on a sales call and acquiring information about the person, let alone the business? You'll do that anyway. Going about acquiring information about the person so that you can expedite the learning of the relationship and the quality of the relationship.
There are certain key questions, and it's always with questions, and being very low key in how you ask those. For instance, saying, hey, Will, I'm just curious, how did you get started in this business?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do before? You know, I start learning about their background. And I said, so when you're not, here's a question I love to ask, and I always ask it in this way. So when you're not killing yourself at work, what do you do for fun?
Yep.
And they like to tell you that. Well, I'm big into fishing. Bingo. I better, you know, I don't write it down in front of them, but when I get back to I'll write that down.
Right.
Big fisherman. So when I reward them for the business they send, you know, I might send them a certificate, you know, to somewhere where they can buy more fishing gear.
Coincidentally, a Bass Pro Shop's opened right by my house 2 months ago.
So, and those are things that nobody does. I was so shocked as I learned more and more about this business, rewarding people and giving them something that's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest question that we would hear is, how did you remember that?
Right.
And you don't tell them, well, I wrote it down.
Right.
We have a form, and that form is almost like the Ten Commandments. I mean, and the form is divided up into sections, their name, you know, what they do, what they did before, their wife's name.
Yep.
And people say, how did you get that? Well, it's a long story. You don't ask you don't sit down and ask 20 questions right on the spot.
Right.
You ask as you grow. How many kids do they have? How old they are? Are they involved in sports? Those are easy questions to ask, and I might get into some of those in the first question. So tell me about your family. And they got married, you know, got 2 kids. Right? Are they involved in anything? Yeah, they're pot water football. Oh my God, we hope we get that one.
Yeah, right.
Really? So
in our case,
so how long did it? Are you involved in it? So how's that going for your son? Does he enjoy it? Your daughter in cheerleading, and don't be afraid to get personal.
yes.
That's the biggest thing I can say, because very few salespeople do that. And as you get personal, it's amazing what happens. And this happened more than once, but one that stands out, the guy stopped me toward the end of the sales call. He said, can I say something? And I said, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This might be one of the best sales calls I've ever been a part of. You actually asked me questions that were important to me instead of ones that would just help you sell more trucks.
Right.
I said, well, it's about relationships.
Yep.
And I remember saying that to him. If I build a relationship with you and I make a mistake, you're probably going to be forgiving.
Yeah.
If I have no relationship and I make a mistake, you're probably not going to do business with me.
Right.
So that's the importance of it. and so many times, it doesn't happen as much now. People would say, "Well, gosh, I'm afraid to ask those questions." I said, "Well, don't be afraid.
Right.
They want to, and it sets you apart from everyone else."
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. On when it comes to building relationships with the person, there's a big difference, and we're all guilty of this. Me maybe more than anybody else. There's a big difference in observing their life, say on a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever, and gaining the knowledge that way,
Yeah.
versus actually showing an interest in the person and asking the corresponding questions and building the relationship that way, in person with them, over the phone, whatever. And if you think about it, ultimately we're in the same camp here, and that you want all your customers to become friends.
Yes,
I completely disagree with anybody who doesn't see it that way, that they want
absolutely.
to keep their customers at arm's length. I'm sure there are other industries where that makes a heck of a lot of sense. This isn't one of them. The more friends you have, especially that they buy from you and you have that relationship, we've seen countless examples
Oh, absolutely,
of that being successful.
absolutely.
So the more interest that you take in the person, their lives, what's important to them. There's a great book by Bill Walsh, the football coach. Wrote two absolute awesome ones. One of them is very famous. I think it's Finding the Winning Edge or something like that. It's all about personnel. The one that I'm referencing here is The Score Takes Care of Itself. If you do all these principal things in a relationship, and you almost focus on building the friendship and what's most important for their business, your results will take care of themselves. You just need to figure out the pace that you need to go, and then the availability of things like vehicles to make that happen as well, which that one's outside our control. We can only do so much there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you on one of everybody's favorite segments that always feels like a throwaway and always ends with "Holy crap, that was fun," is personality styles.
Oh gosh.
And you built something just as simple as a card, a 4x6 card,
Right.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
on the 4 disc ones, if you will, and then modified it to fit in a really actionable way.
Yes.
And I've taken many personality tests over the years, and they're just really hard to keep track of everything and how you match and everything. The way that you broke down dominant director, interactive socializer, steady relator, and cautious thinker, what I absolutely love about it is that it is quick action. You can look at it real quick and know exactly how to walk in and meet with somebody based on their style, their setting, or if you're surprised by it, make that quick adjustment. Talk about how you defined it in the early going, because it's so much fun to talk about now.
Well, the card is a result of a book I read.
And it says copyright 1999 on the original card, which is even before commercial truck training.
Yeah.
And brought over. So yes,
Yeah, because I was doing training on the mortgage side as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I read a book initially about the personality styles, and then I started thinking about it, and I started coming up with attributes of that style, because contrary to popular belief, people do want to be sold to in the way they prefer.
They prefer.
Not have we prefer. You can ask too many questions in some cases, or depending on the personality style, you can listen more to certain personality styles. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Example is dominant director. Very aggressive style. They want you to get right to the point.
Yep.
And you need to recognize that early in the conversation.
Which is not to say, hey, you need 8 trucks, right? It takes a little more than that, but yes.
Right, right. Yeah, and so you're going to get to the point quicker. Steady relator, again, that's very personality, friendship oriented. They need more time to warm up.
Yeah.
They need to know that you care about them personally as well as professionally. So that's a different style. The cautious thinker icon as the bean counter, the CPA type.
Yep.
And you're very specific on questions. If you talk too much with them, they shut down right away.
Yes.
And are you finished yet? Okay, that my time's up.
Mm.
You know, very direct, but yet probably the most loyal, because people don't take the time to ask them enough questions,
Mm-hmm.
and to create that loyalty. They don't mind answering your question. They don't want you to talk too much. So each style is different, and that's why I created the card, so you could, before you went into the sales call, you could put the card up and remind yourself. And then after you left, if something didn't go quite right, you can look at the card. Well, gosh, that guy's a dominant director. Right. He wants to control the conversation, and I took control. The card was just invaluable. We give that card out at all of our programs.
All boot camps. Yep.
And it is a godsend. I've had so much feedback on the card.
Me too.
I mean, it's amazing. And people say, I take it with me everywhere I go. It's right in my notebook. And they review it before they go in. Which style, I need to be ready for all 4 of these styles. They'll review it, and then review it afterward. So just so many things we do at our programs that set us apart from everyone else.
Yeah. I view that from, our football backgrounds, in my case, quarterbacking terms of, I've actually had training manuals with quarterbacking where the card itself would be a defense, so to speak, and exact same shape and similar of, this is what it'll typically look like, and these are some of the keys to look for. And if you have a safety stacked over a linebacker, that linebacker's probably blitzing, so look for that. So I share that in that this card it's your little mini generic, but a little mini scouting report on the personality that you're about to interact with. And we recommend, we typically give them out in 2s and then have you cut them, because it's just easier to print that way.
Yeah.
But cut them in half and put one in the visor of your demo, and then one somewhere near your phone at your desk.
Yeah.
And just, if you're in doubt at all how it might go, take 30 seconds to a minute, look over the section of the person that you think you're going to be dealing with, and think about, do I need to alter the approach a little bit? Do I need to, with a dominant director, do I need to come in hard to the conversation and kind of needle them a little bit? Or, with a cautious thinker, hey, I was looking over some numbers, I'd like to review them with you. Well, that's gold right there. So just those little approach differences that can make a really dynamic difference within the course of the conversation, super valuable for you. And it's one of my favorite sections in the book, because when we actually get going on, by the time we get to that, we've established quite a rapport in the room, and enjoy sharing what we think of each other and all that.
And we have them pick a customer and define them.
Yes.
And so often someone says, "Wow, I've been taking the wrong approach."
Yes.
I need to readjust. And
there's always somebody that you'll sometimes they don't verbalize it, and you can actually hear them, but I'll be sitting there watching, they'll review it, and somebody will inevitably go, oh, something like that. That is that's always fun to see.
Well, it's almost like a scouting report.
So one takeaway over the years of executing these and then watching its evolution, one takeaway to leave our viewers with of the Ultimate Bootcamp.
Relationships rule the world. Your job is not to sell the truck in the beginning. Your job is to build a solid relationship.
Yeah.
There's a thing, and I've had someone say, I don't care if they like me, I just want to buy from me. They have to like you to buy from you. And the 3 words that we always use are know, really get to know everything about them. Like, they do have to like you, contrary to popular belief. And trust. You build those 3 things, and you will have more business, and you know what to do with.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you'll join us at one of the Ultimate Boot Camps coming up, or if you've been, hopefully your dealership is growing and you need new hires to send our way. Or, as Ken mentioned at the beginning of the video, we get a lot of people that have come back a second, third, 4th time.
Yep.
We had one at our most recent one prior to filming this, that this was his 4th round. All 3 previous were with you in the room, but then leading the room, and this one with me. So consider it, because we've really gotten this in a good place that can help an awful lot of people.
Absolutely.
And have the right perspective and the right way to execute moving forward. So thanks for joining us. I know we went a little longer today. This is a little bit more of a kind of a throwback to the podcast that we used to do. but felt very, very necessary to do some retrospectives given 25 years in the industry. So
Right.
thank you,
Bless you.
and thank you.